Orbán Tower in Košice. Thank you for the invitation to be here again. When the question came, reconstruction of reconstructions, my first idea was how different approaches we have on monuments at a certain time and what kind of consequences it may have in the future. If you deal with a historic monument, you have to deal with it until the end of your life. We can speak about it on a social level. If there is a research in a historic monument, then the reconstruction is topical from time to time. So this was the state of the tower when we started the research. We were lucky because a lot of resources have been found recently, and they are accessible nowadays. And in this way, we can make a much more complex picture about the historic monuments. I will show you just a couple of words. Sometimes it is named Red Tower. First, we had to detect what kind of red tower it is. It is 1685 when it is present the first time, and we have some more valid ones. This is the Hufnagel engraving, where a question is arisen. Behind the cathedral, there is a kind of a tower which could be the Orbán Tower, but it's an open question. Then there are some other engravings from the 1660s. We can see on them the Orbán Tower from the east and from the west. We can say that the spire is a bit different. So the spire is a bit different. And then there is another one going back to 1880, where the spire is different again. But we have detected that in 1775 there was a fire, and that time the spire was burned. So it must have been made. This picture must have been made before. Then a lot of photos were taken. We can see the Stendhal, the situation before the Stendhal reconstruction in details. But something can be seen about the tower, about the spire, and then sometimes we can see the little shops around, sometimes they were pulled down. The literature from the beginning of the 20th century it is emphasized that it was created for the urban bell in the 16th, 17th century. So from 1905, the shops were were pulled down, and an arched addition completed the building. And this completion during the war, it was altered, and what was interesting about it was that the restoration started during the war, and it was completed after the war. You can see these cross vaultings. They are very thin, were built from Drabits concrete. First we thought that it was from bricks, but practically they were very thin layers of concrete already from the beginning of the 20th century. Then in 1966, the 1st of December, it was burnt because there was an electric kind of station. So it was completely burnt. The bell fell off, which was made in 1556. And then the research of the tower was started. A very thorough, very precise research documentation was made. Helped by professionals. Black and white photos were taken, details, and there was a turn about the data of the one by the shape of the bell windows. So it dates back to the 1480s. It was considered to be of Gothic origin. The tower so this high roof construction was put on it. So this is what it looked like after the restoration in 1968. Then we started to deal with the tower itself. Our first idea was, great, we will find the medieval parts of the tower, but as we looked at it, then we found that it was built in a single construction period. These Renaissance sections, window frames are changing in material, but from the same material, from the same stone, is really two frames. So this this arch-shaped window frame was built from the same material. Under the frame, we could see, we could find a beam which the exact date of which we couldn't find, in spite of the fact that we thought that this whole tower is not of medieval roots. But we went back to the 1628. So we found even the architect who designed it, and there are 6 different periods of the construction of the restoration. This is the one which was made during the war. The Slovakian monument protection works in the way that all the documentation must be shown for opponent opinions, and the committee discusses it, and within this committee the committee was astonished, and they recommended that I should redraw, and that it's a preconditionally a Renaissance building, but it was accepted finally, because I told them that there are some beam sections and it would be good to date it chronologically. One argument was that in a previous literature it was mentioned to be a Renaissance. And then the question came, was it Hungarian literature or what? So I didn't ask Grineus Andras, but Tomasik, the endochronologist, and we could create such kind of relative chronology of construction. 1628, several reconstructions occurred, and this Gothic reconstruction can be seen concerning the spire. The research document, after accepting the research documentation, we managed to date the beam, by the year rings of the beam, but it must be 1553. And it shows that it can't have been the tree can't have been cut down in the 14th century. So 1627 is the date. Some 2 years ago, we managed to make a scaffolding, and he examined endings of the beams, and these are the dates of these. when those beams were cut down. And one more important fact, that around the church archaeological research was done, and about 10 years ago these sondas were made around the Orban Tower, and went down to the bottom level. Several layers were found. He didn't deal with the findings, but we could think about the different layers. And this research refers also to the age of the Orban Tower, that it may have been built in the 17th century due to different findings. And here we can see the surrounding wall of the garden of St. Elizabeth Church, which goes under the tower. So a kind of reconstruction documentation was created, and we decided to have a very thorough research on the facade, the green area should be restored. And what was surprising, and which I can't answer even nowadays, so this kind of carpentry system was created, was designed, and it's not clear whether they knew this this drawing, but the roof structure resembles this one. And another surprising one, we could find secondarily used pieces of stones. It's very difficult to date, but this one, the cross decoration, so they were typical in the 15th century. And one more thing, in the earliest building period, these Renaissance shapes, but secondarily used sections, these cross roses and these arches, which are, we can see three different variations of it. So it seems that already during the construction they used Renaissance and Gothic shapes. In Transylvania and in Košice, he found the documents referring to stone carving activities, where already in the 16th century, a kind of heading had to be carved. So it was used already that time, and it was popular already at that time. And here we can see the corner section carved off, where we can see this reddish paint remains. At the end of the 60s, there was a restoration. This under this stone, we can see a grayish whitewash layer, and we can see it very well that they are remains of reddish paint, and they are just at the corner section. And finally, we could find it important that sometimes it's important to go back to the virtues of our own researches. After the latest restoration, so this red, so this is the latest variation on the right side, and we could see the previous history photos, and we can see that this Renaissance bar iron system was sent to the Eastern Slovakian Museum, and we can see that the shape of the gate and the construction of the gate was the same shape. And if we see this picture on the left, we can see that there is no handle on the gate. It could be opened just with a key, and it was quite widespread around Kassa-Košice. In the 17th century, it was characteristic in the church of Péderi. But that lock system is even earlier than this one. So we can say that this gate is minimum goes back to the 18th century, or perhaps even older. Now they open inside the wings. And the shape of the panels are reconstructed. And when we went back to the museum, and then when we went back to the museum, the director said that, perhaps it would be even better if you took it away, because they had no money for restoration. So it seems that it might be installed back to its original place. I haven't brought a picture about its reconstructed state. It has a light grayish effect. I wanted to make it red, but since this red features were in connection with the corner stones, then the authority decided to keep this grayish surface. Of course, negative reflects appeared straight away. Opinions about the restored tower. A historian said that the whole restored tower is a kind of a hybrid. That a study was made finally the Monument Protection Board, so we had to explain this state to the Monument Protection Board. Well, we can criticize it, we can blame it, but if we think that architecture is a complex issue, then if we write something about a building, then we can write about it good things and bad things. It is just a personal attitude, how much positive and how much negative you find in it. Well, architectural creations, restored buildings can be understood in a different way. This duality is present everywhere if you examine a building.
Köszönöm szépen, és éppen amikor ennyi lett,
and the proportions or the size of the gate is different, but it is only due to the photo. I would like to ask something about the secondarily built carvings. The stone restorers, did they remove or lift out 15th century carvings, or could you survey these stone carvings, which buildings or what kind of buildings they were taken there, and if they were lifted out of the wall, where do they get?
What I wanted to add first, that is medieval dating is very widespread, that it was taken by Tim Jukes as well. What to do with the carvings? Well, we could have a debate, a very long debate about it. When I was a beginner, I removed all of them, and now I think they should be left there. The best place for them is there. We took pictures. It's a hypothesis, perhaps. It's a repeated process. So it may be, it may have come from the Franciscan Church, but it's just a hypothesis. It may turn out in the future where they come from. The construction of the tower is the same time when the Franciscans left the town, and the church was used to store guns and gunpowder there. So it's quite possible that those come from that church.
I'm very much interested in that picture. And why was it painted green in one drawing? It's not evaluation, it's just a technological solution.
The method, this is a compulsory element of the Slovak restoration methodology, and there is a kind of identical understanding that there is a value inventory, and the building has to be evaluated by layers, what is to be kept, what can be altered, what must be removed. And this greenish section was to show the part to be restored.
And is this methodology available in any document forms?
On the homepage of the Monument Protection Board, it is available, and it's good because in this way, these researches must be handed in, and there are two opponents, and it was started in 2010, but it's good because so it's good that if you write something, then there is somebody who reads it.
What I'm interested in, what happened to the other building? And this looks quite new. Did you do anything to it which was around the tower? This is the part of the building.
No, nothing happened. But within that, a kind of balcony. There are tombstones placed on the lower part of the tower. There is a very old one, yes. So there used to be the porch around the church. They didn't rebuild it, but the tombstones are existing around, built in the wall around. It's a protection to the of the tombstones, and well, it's a very steep tower, and ice, some pieces of ice slip down, and it's a kind of protection for people. It's a town tower, but the first mayor was an architect, and this tower was given to the Catholic Church. And now the Catholic Church is trying to do something about this tower, that perhaps there could be a cafe there. Well, not the best place, well, in front of the tombstones. And the other one is very difficult to keep it clean, and there is a lot of rubbish over there. So somehow these porches should be closed, fenced off. The biggest problem is to preserve and conserve the very important tombstones.
Why I'm interested in it is that the restoration of the facade has been finished. If the two are joined, what's going to happen? The roof is okay now?
What's more, we didn't touch the spire. Perhaps my recommendation was to open the space above one of the arches to be able to see the original layers.
It is just an idea, not a question. Did you think of this thing that if there are pigment traces on the stones, with the new painting, you should strengthen the painting, the colors, or it is an unusual thing which you don't usually do? I think there is no traces of the colors, of the original colors after the fire.
Outside, we can see all the layers. There is a whitewashed layer. Sometimes the earlier layer remains. There are places where all the layers have remained. We can see that the problematic aspect about going back to the 14th century, it meant that different layers had to be restored. But if we had to go back to the very original layer to make the stones visible, there wouldn't have been money to go back to the very original layer. But I myself like the idea to call it Red Tower. But finally this greyish appearance was kept.
How much was it a shock to the history of Košice that you found that the 200 years difference?
Those colleagues who deal with history, they were sad, no, it's impossible. But they were more interested, the general public was more interested in the final outcome of the restoration. And I was happy. That these Gothic shapes, and in Pennsylvania, in Transylvania, and in the Czech Republic, they were existing parallel with the Renaissance, in the Renaissance period. Is it the effect of the cathedral standing nearby? At the end of the 19th century, they were even thinking about pulling the whole tower down. Luckily, it survived.
Thank you very much for your lecture. And of course, you are given a book. Thank you very much again.